admitted that both Facebook and the FBI interfered in the 2020 election on the Joe Rogan Experience. And, for all of the news coverage, and to some degree rightfully so, over the last 4 years about January 6th, about some of Trump's claims of the election that him and his lawyers were really never able to demonstrate at all. But how about that admission that the FBI came and told Facebook, be prepared for a Russian dump that's coming soon. And then when the laptop came out, you have 50 plus intelligence officers signing on to this letter saying that this is the Russian disinformation. And he admitted to censoring people for that.
Dave Smith, I need to hear you on this clip then. Right after that, say we need First Amendment protection on these platforms. And I don't know if I've heard him say that yet. I haven't heard. I'm a big supporter of Dave Smith. This is not against Dave Smith. He's on with Piers Morgan. You see Tim Pool on there. They're talking Mark Zuckerberg, Meta, censorship, all of that. I just want to, I listened to a lot of Dave Smith. I haven't heard that specific take yet. And I'm sure he would agree, but I just need to hear it more because people are missing it. This is crazy. Tim Pool and Dave Smith go at this woke woman. Discussion is on the Meta Facebook changes. You're going to hear Dave Smith go into some of the problems here, like you just heard. And then the leftist woman's about to get involved. The wokest is about to get involved. Tim Pool, Tim Cast, part of the problem. Dave Smith, Piers Morgan still doing a good job with this show here. And I think he got full ownership of it now because it's getting about $1 million every upload. Let's go back to Piers Morgan Uncensored debate time. Alert.
This is like blatant election interference by the FBI and one of the biggest tech companies out there. I mean, I would think if you're going to reverse that, it would also come along with like an apology and some admission of what you were a part of. He says he created the site to give people a voice. You robbed your fellow Americans of their voice in a very important, crucial point in American history.
I agree with Comic Dave Smith here, but this is not more important than saying, look at the problem with the fascism, the government basically teaming up with the private business by force, or even if it's not by force, they're teaming up with the private business to censor people in their own favor. That means if the platform is powerful enough for that to happen, we need First Amendment protection on the platform. And Dave's not talking about, instead he's talking about how, and I agree with him, but Mark Zuckerberg not apologizing is not nearly as important. Let's get back to Comic Dave Smith on Piers Morgan. Tim Pool's going to get in. They're going to go in on this woke woman right here.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was a New York Post columnist at the time that all went down with their exclusive on Hunter Biden's laptop, which turned out to be a completely genuine story and certainly wasn't Russian disinformation. And the way that all played out was quite extraordinary and pretty terrifying to see that the New York Post...
Well, although, guys, come on. Look, tech companies make mistakes the way publishing companies make
mistakes. But that wasn't a mistake, Cara, was it? I mean, it wasn't a...
Well, hang on.
Hang on, point. They actually banned the New York Post X account completely.
Yes, they did.
If they didn't take down their true story. I mean, that is the most blatant attack on free speech I've ever seen.
But it's not.
No, they're not. They're saying it's attack on free speech, but I don't hear anybody saying we should have free speech protection. And Piers Morgan is not. We need like longtime Americans in this conversation, not someone across the pond. But do you see my frustration? Why I have to pause this? They say, well, that's an attack on free speech. Well, you're not even making the argument that we should have free speech on these platforms. Piers Morgan, I don't think he would agree with that. I still think if you think they're private platforms, then they did nothing wrong. If that's your position, have your position, but then none of this is wrong. They can do whatever they want. That's not my position.
Free speech is not a government institution. Companies do that. Disney didn't put out a movie in China because the Chinese
government... It doesn't make it right, though, does it?
Of course not, but it's you're equating Facebook.
What the hell does Disney and China have to do with anything?
Look, you're equating Facebook or Twitter with the government. It is not a public square.
No, I'm not.
I certainly was not. Listen, I was not equating Facebook and the FBI, and I think it is reasonable to point out that a lot of these big tech companies were under duress really since.
Well, man, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm just. I don't know. I just feel like I'm just the only. Am I the only one out? What the hell is happening right now? Do you see my concern? I just if Tom Dave Smith is one of the best, smartest, most reasonable, best debate bro, and his take is, what kind of response is that? He's backpedaling at this point. Let's continue it, and hopefully it gets better. I'm just like, am I the only one? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I feel like I'm the meme in the Game of Thrones when it was Jon Snow facing everybody, and it's like I'm just by myself. And I know the cavalry came behind him, but at that moment, it was just him by himself. And I'm like, am I wrong? What is going on? What is this take here? What's going on here?
Story. I mean, that is the most blatant attack on free speech I've ever seen.
But it's not free speech. It's not a government institution. Companies do that. Disney didn't.
She's just nervous, so she's not being clear. When she says free speech is not, she's saying that Twitter. Let's just talk about the laptop and Twitter at the time. She's saying Twitter is not a government institution, so free speech doesn't apply. You see my point? You have to address that head on. Now, of course it should apply. If it's big enough for the government to come through, if I have a private bookstore on the corner that can hold 20 people or something like that, or an ice cream shop, or a local a deli or something like that, the government's not coming to my deli saying, well, I think all these people are going to flood your deli with disinformation, misinformation, which is really just propaganda that everybody does. I'm not big enough for that to matter. The same kind of critique they put on the bill for TikTok to ban it. That's potentially going through here soon, January 19th, less than a week, potentially. The same restrictions on size and all that is the type of company that the government puts pressure on, just like Dave Smith. If the government is putting pressure on a company to censor for any reason, I don't care how legit it is, that company is a state actor. And that's not even to mention the Elon Musk owns Twitter now, for example, X. And he also owns SpaceX. He also owns Tesla. He also owns Neuralink. These are all companies that contract with the government directly. So you can't be you are literally a state actor at that point. You can't take a dime from the government, have a digital platform of the size of X, and censor people, and me think it's okay. And Dave Smith is not. Hopefully, I stopped this too early. Let's continue on.
Put out a movie in China because the Chinese.
It doesn't make it right, though, does it?
Of course not, but it's you're equating Facebook. You're equating Facebook or Twitter with the government. It is not a public square.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you should be equating them with the government. Why wouldn't you? Are you serious? Do you know how even Facebook started? And do we know the government involvement with Twitter before Elon took over, and probably still going on now? We just would never know. Oh my goodness.
I'm not.
To be very clear, I certainly was not. Listen, I was not equating Facebook and the FBI, and I think it is reasonable to point out that a lot of these big tech companies were under duress really since Donald Trump won in 2016. All the heads were hauled in front of Congress and threatened up and down if they didn't get this misinformation problem under control. But is the claim here that those intelligence officers made a mistake and really thought this was Russian disinformation?
Here's what I'm saying,
and
is
then
our
realized it was Hunter Biden's laptop?
Our government should be talking. Go ahead.
Tim, no, let Cara finish her point, then I'll bring you in, Tim.
The government should constantly be talking to lots of companies because there are disinformation campaigns.
No, the government can't be just talking to companies. If the government needs to talk to we're only talking about really free speech companies right now, but it could apply to Amazon too. Can Amazon just randomly say, you violated the terms of service, you can't shop here anymore? Can Tesla say, separate from X, can Tesla say, you were saying stuff about the tiny hats, I can turn your car off or not allow you to charge your Tesla anymore because you are doing hate speech? Can they do that? So let's get back to the clip and see where they go.
from Iran, Russia. You can't pretend that China's not all up in our grill. You just can't. You just can't. And there should be discussions between government and companies. They're going to occur.
If you're going to have those discussions on those platforms, when people are involved, no matter what the business is, they should have constitutional rights. The argument is, once you go on X, you do not have any constitutional rights. Do you see the problem I have here?
By the way, they've been occurring since the beginning of time, way back when, go watch Oppenheimer. There's discussions happening all the time on all levels between companies. The question is, what is pressure and what is important discussions that these companies, because they are at the nexus of all these information systems, should be having?
Anytime, the government always has the threat of legislation. So there's a constant threat at any time. Even if they never talk to the companies, there's a threat. If X wants to buy Substack, or so, I'm just making that up. It's too late now. It's probably worth too much. But at some point, X should have bought Substack. They made a mistake, didn't do that. But say they did want to buy it now. They would have to merger now. If either one of them pissed off the government, they could fear that the government wouldn't allow the merger. Even if the government never said anything about them, much less if they did. Much less if Donald Trump appointed Elon Musk, the head of X, to his office. That's not enough, much less all the other stuff.
And what are the guardrails against government overreaching? I am all for stopping government overreach.
What is the guardrail? Wait for it. I'm going to wait for it if you can tell me in the comments. What's the government guardrail to stop from overreach? It's the Bill of Rights and then the judicial system.
I did a great interview with Edward Snowden about this issue. Perhaps the way he did it wasn't right, but what the government was doing was wrong. They fixed it. There should be guardrails around these things. The question is how it's done. But what happens is there's a fever dream on the left and a fever dream on the right of what's occurring. And it's a little less, nefarious. I think that Facebook, unfortunately, occupies a far too important role in news distribution as a kind of a monopoly. And that's the problem we have going forward. It's a private company that's determining what everybody sees. And they're going to not just make mistakes. We're at the behest of Mark Zuckerberg's obviously incompetent ability to decide what's right and wrong. Nor should he, by the way.
Let me bring Tim in. You've been waiting patiently. Tim, your response.
Free speech is a principle. When we say that Facebook, X, Twitter, whatever platform is silencing free speech, we are not talking about the First Amendment. The First Amendment protects multiple rights, of which one of those is free speech.
Jeez. Why are we not talking about that, Tim? If Tim Pool and Dave Smith aren't where I need them to be, we're cooked. Hi. Congratulations.
So this constant conflation of a private company isn't violating your First Amendment. I'm not going to bring up the First Amendment. I'm going to go on a
now we're not bringing up the First Amendment. So what is the argument? I don't know.
Platform. I'm going to express my ideas and share news. And if they silence me, they are violating my free speech.
I'm not going to bring up the First Amendment. Wow.
Now, more importantly, this argument about, you mentioned there's a fever dream on the left and the right. I want to make one thing clear. Mark Zuckerberg coming out and saying that now we're going to have more free speech or whatever it is he's trying to say. This is not a pendulum swing. This is not the weather vane. Certainly, I do believe the man is just bending the knee to whatever power structure he sees. But if we were actually going to see a pendulum swing in the other direction, they would keep the fact-checking program, ban the liberal news outlets, and...
This is a canned response from Tim. It's not even addressing what we've been talking about. This is brutal, man. This is brutally bad. This is really bad, Tim. Really, really bad.
Only allow conservative outlets to fact-check posts on Facebook. When you look at all sides, when you look at ground news, the majority of U.S. fact-checkers had a liberal bias, and only one, which was associated with the Daily Caller, was considered to be conservative-leaning. And when numerous outlets on the right made attempts to get access through Pointer to the fact-checking system, they were denied that. So now, once again, what do we see? Real quick, to another point, back to the First Amendment issue, I just want to add, the government had backdoors into X and Facebook where we actually got to click the link and go to the login portal for the federal government to go into Facebook to flag posts.
And we've got no confirmation that it's been taken down.
And there was an instance where if you said the name Eric Charamella on YouTube or Facebook, your post would be inexplicably deleted. And everybody knew that was happening. And this is Real Clear Politics that it broke the reporting on Eric Charamella. So what we're looking at since Elon took over Twitter and turned it into X, we have consistently seen a dominant liberal or Democrat party bias on these platforms. And when the problem is, quote unquote, resolved, you get neutrality. There's been no circumstance where we have seen a right bias or a conservative bias or a pendulum swing in the other direction. So Mark Zuckerberg right now is declaring neutrality. He's not actually swearing fealty or kissing the pinky ring of Trump.
Who cares? Like, what's your point? I don't know, man. Tell me. This is not good, man. Not good. If you believe in free speech and you understand what it means that if a company is a state actor, you do have free speech rights. You should on their platform. This is not a good moment.
The next clip is ready below. Welcome to After Show Carnage.